Hi, this is Badass Benny, and welcome to my channel. If you are an AIDS survivor, AMAC, or sex human trafficking survivor, you are in the right place. Welcome. I was going to tell a story, but my daughter, it's St. Patty's Day, and we do celebrate it. I'm Scotch, Irish, Welsh. Sometimes you hear a bit of a twang from me. My mom's from Tennessee, or we have southern roots, so on my mom's side, so I do, it comes out, and we do celebrate it. We have a stew and everything, um, and so I'm going to talk about, um, instead of my oral cop story, I usually do this on Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays, my videos. I try to be consistent, but there's 3 classified rapists, and I'm going to talk about that, and that's anger, power, and sadistic rapist. There's 3 kinds. I'm sure we have all kinds, but I'm going to do the 3. I do have a sense of humor. And I love myself today, have self-love and respect and dignity because of doing the inner work. And yes, I've almost died. It takes, it doesn't have to be all dramatic, but, each of our stories is our stories, and healing is personal. And if my story of healing can help you, and I'm trying to educate here first a little, then good. So, I'm going to talk about 3 rapists, and I'm going to end, I think this 3 videos today. I may do one later tonight. Who knows? Until I get a table and chairs and another setup is what I'm doing. So, don't think anything more of it. I'm in a studio and I'm on Social Security and I'm happy today. Alright. Those of us who work with and are concerned about victims of rape have strong needs to understand why men rape. And there's women that rape, not just men. By Dr. A. Nicholas Groth. He has classified Dr. A. Nicholas Groth. I don't know who he is, but he came up with 3 types. The anger rapist sexually becomes a means of expressing and releasing feelings of intense anger, rage, hatred, and frustration. The assault is usually very brutal, for more physical force is used than is needed to overpower the victim. This type of offender or perpetrator strikes and beats his victim, tears her clothes or his clothes, uses abusive and obscene language, knocks her or him to the ground, and rapes him or her, and frequently forces him or her to perform degrading acts. The rapist appears to be angry, frustrated, and depressed. The anger rapist commits sexual assaults as an expression of his hostility or her and rage towards women and men. Power rapist is will only use whatever force is necessary to overpower his or her victim. And we're going to say survivors, because I don't like using victim. Victim is dead. The offender feels a sense of power when the survivor submits. We're going to say victim because the victim means it's actually happening. It's happening, so I'm going to use it that way, okay? When the victim submits to his or her sexual demands, the offender threatens the victim either verbally or with a weapon. Any kind of weapon. It could be a knife, gun, a gunpoint. Penis can be as a weapon. In the state of law, California, you can't block people, from moving, getting out of a room. So the victim cannot refuse or resist him. Something that will overpower you, and that will scare you, and you will submit. This provides the offender with the perpetrator with a reassuring sense of power, security, and strength and control. He or she assaults someone is to try and compensate for his underlying feelings of inadequacy, vulnerability, and helplessness. The power rapist often lacks social skills needed in interpersonal relationships and feels inadequate of both sexual and non-sexual areas of his or her life. And it's usually, you know, you hear about men do this more than women, but women do it too. Rape becomes the means by which he reassures himself or herself of his or her sexual adequacy, of his or her strength and potency. Often the victim is kidnapped and tied up or rendered helpless in some manner because the power rapist needs to view the assault as a conquest. Kind of reminds me of people like, or men that have sex with many different women to conquer them. You know, same thing with women, like to flirt and flirt and flirt until you get that person, and when you got him, then, you know, the hunt, or, you know, all that's done and did, you know, the flirting's done. You won him over. No, that's got to go on for life, right? Okay. For the offender, the rape becomes one of anxiety, excitement, anticipated pleasure. That's why a lot of, you know, I see Trump, or, you know, folks like him, and on this Epstein list, these elites like this, they have power and control issues for sure, and pride and ego with this money. The type of offender fantasizes that the victim may resist him at first, but once overpowered, she will submit and be impressed with his sexual abilities. It's messed up, huh? The assault is disappointing because it never lives up to its fantasy. The power rapist commits assaults in an effort to resolve disturbing doubts about his masculinity and sexual adequacy. It's mostly males that do this that way. Sadistic rapist. The offender derives satisfaction in the sexual abuse of his victim. Sexually and aggression become intertwined into single experience sadism, or, you know, sadism, like sadist stuff. The assault itself appears realistic, like ritualistic, and usually involves bondage and torture. I have a story on this one. Sexual areas of the victim's body become the focus of torture. It could be the vagina or penis. That's why you hear a little, you know, I've heard stories, you hear these awful stories of little boys' penis gets cut off. Things like that. For the sadistic rapist, the rape experience is one of intense and mounting excitement. He finds pleasure in the victim's torment, anguish, distress, and suffering. The assault may or may not involve the offender's genitals. The victim may be raped with a foreign object. It could be a crowbar. It could be a cucumber. It could be anything. Hands. The sadistic rapist finds intense gratification in controlling, hurting, degrading, and sometimes destroying his victim, murdering them. And I had a client, and she's dead, and you know, sometimes I would hear that was one of the stories that scared the crap out of me. Because she went to a bar and, you know, had something to drink. They both did, the guy, and they went out into the van. They had a little joint, and then he raped her, so beat her up to where you couldn't identify her. You couldn't know who she was, and put a crowbar, put all kinds of things in her, and hurt her inside all over. She had to have a new eye put in, and she, and there was a time when, yeah, she did. I don't know if she could have had a healthy relationship sexually, I don't know, but she needed a lot of work to where I hope she didn't perpetrate onto someone else, is what I'm saying. And people can be healed. People can be healed. And you're worth it. And you're worthy. And why do some AMAC survivors assault and some don't? It has to do with how you take care of yourself, or how the core issue, or the trying to remember, like how people respond to something like that. I'm going to have to think about it because my mind went, and it does that. You know, I'm older and my mind goes that way. And you can patiently remind me, you know. And otherwise, I don't, you know, I don't like negativity or critical or pointing fingers and you know, I'm not here for people to tear me apart. I'm here to share my story, and if it helps you, great. Because not a lot of people like myself make it. Have a good day. I love you.